Welcome back. Today I had a special request from one of my amazing yogi students. He said, would you please teach the process of Ho'oponopono? That's a Hawaiian process. It's a Hawaiian prayer. It comes from the kahuna, who were the keepers of the secret, the shamanic tradition. And there's more than one tradition. Every shamanic family would have a particular tradition. And a lot of these floated towards Tad. He was living in Hawaii. He was studying with multiple big kahuna. And to everything that he learned, he would break it down in terms of neurolinguistic programming. So he could see all of these processes from a Western standpoint of view and also the ancient Hawaiian standpoint of view. And when you put that together, it was really a beautiful mix, and that is the way that Tad taught. It was really phenomenal. So I'm going to teach you the Ho'opono prayer the way that Tad taught it to me. And the thing about this is we are beginning to step into this secondary world with this kind of a practice. With all of the meditative practices, we're beginning to step into that secondary world, right? So we've got our physical world, and then we've got this internal world of therapy and Om Japa in the chakras and sitting very still. And the Kurukshetra war, right, of the Bhagavad Gita. And in that internal secondary world, we begin stepping into feeling ourselves and feeling others, and praying for ourselves and praying for others, and feeling a shift. Then coming back to our world and noticing a shift. And so now you're living in two worlds, aren't you? You're not just living in the exterior world. You understand that I did something internally and my external world has changed because of it. And so you could say that this kind of a prayer is the beginning of psychic development. There's a psychic development which is going on. We begin to notice that the interior world directly affects our exterior world. It's really phenomenal learning. So let's get into it. To really be able to wrap our minds around the process of Ho'oponopono, I wanted to give it to you in a more Western or Christian standpoint. And this was a prayer from Brother Bhaktinanda. So I was living in the ashram, and we all looked up to these old monastics that had been there for so long. And one of them was Brother Bhaktinanda, and a core central piece of his entire teaching for all of his life was this prayer. And what he did was he strung together a number of teachings from Yogananda, and he turned it into his own prayer. And this is what he would teach. And very interestingly, you say the prayer. So I hope I get this number right. If I remember correctly, it was 5 times for yourself and 3 times for the other person that you are working on in your prayer. But the point is, you pray more for yourself than you do with the person that you're having trouble with. All right? That's a key part of this prayer. We pray more about ourselves and our interior attitude and less about the other person. And that's the magic of this prayer. That's the magic of Ho'oponopono. And so I wanted to emphasize that part of this prayer. This is the Peace and Harmony prayer from Brother Bhaktinanda. And so you're walking through your day and you have trouble with your boss, you have trouble with your wife, you have trouble with your kid. If you have trouble with anybody, try out the Peace and Harmony prayer and just witness how magical it is. It might not transform in a day or in 2 days or in 3 days, but if you use this prayer for a few days or in a row or a week, and then notice the situation with the person again, I guarantee it's going to transform. And that is just magical. It's just magical. It really is. And so, okay, I have a problem with somebody, and I sit down and I say, Lord, fill me with peace and harmony, peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill me with peace and harmony, peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill me with peace and harmony, peace and harmony, peace and harmony. And I say that to myself, either out loud or with my mind. I say that to myself 5 times. The whole thing, 5 times. And then the person that I'm having trouble with, I say, Lord, fill them with peace and harmony, peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill them with peace and harmony, peace and harmony, peace and harmony. Lord, fill them with peace and harmony, peace and harmony, peace and harmony. And I say that 3 times. And I hope I'm getting those numbers right. It's been a while. So I think that's correct. 5 times for myself, 3 times for the other person. Very, very simple, right? Very, very simple prayer. Fill me with peace and harmony. Okay, I'm done. Now fill them with peace and harmony. Very simple prayer. It has magical consequences. And I would talk with people and they would tell me, oh yeah, I had trouble with a doctor. They didn't want to help me in the way that I wanted them to help me. And I just did the peace and harmony prayer. And the next day I saw them and they completely turned around. Oh yeah, I was having trouble with a contractor that was working on my house, and I just used the peace and harmony prayer. Next day I saw him again, he completely turned around. And so there are magical consequences to doing the peace and harmony prayer. All right? So I invite you to try it out. So when I learned the process of Ho'oponopono, and then I remembered Brother Bhaktananda and his peace and harmony prayer, I realized, of course, they're doing the same exact thing. The Ho'oponopono prayer is a prayer of forgiveness and reconciliation. Anytime there's a problem with anybody. And the rule that Tad said was that the kahuna would not allow the person to not forgive. Not because of the other person, but because of the damage it would do to you internally, which would eventually manifest externally. The kahuna were adamant that everybody had to forgive. Very interesting, right? We have to let go, we have to forgive, or we're going to damage ourselves internally, and it will show up eventually externally. So this is how Tad taught me the Ho'oponopono prayer. First, you imagine that you are in a large cathedral, a holy place, a cathedral, and you are up on the stage, and out in the audience is the person that you are having trouble with. And the first thing that you do is you call on the light. You call on the light and you allow the mana from heaven to come down into your body, filling up your feet. Calling the light, calling the mana to come down into you. You could do the ha breath with this. And you bring the light down into your calves. And then you bring the light down, filling up all of your thighs. And then filling up all of your stomach and the lower body. And then finally filling all the way up into your heart and into your chest until the light is filling you completely from the bottom of your toes to the top of your head. So fill yourself up with light first, right? Establish your connection with the mana, with the higher self. Establish that by imagining all of this light filling you up. If you're not good at visualization, we don't care. Feel it. Feel the light filling you up. How does that feel to be full of light? Feel that feeling growing inside of you, filling you up through your toes, through your legs, through your abdomen, through your chest, through your throat, through your head, all the way up into heaven. We're not breathing through the brain, we're imagining through the brain, and that's allowed, all right? So fill up the entire body with the light of heaven, establishing your connection to the higher self. And as you become supremely full, this love and this light which is inside of you overflows from your heart, and it begins to go out from your heart into the person you are having trouble with in your life. It's flowing out to them, the light, the pure light of heaven, from that connection from heaven, flowing through you, overflowing from you, going out from your heart, filling up the other person. It's going into their heart, and then it's going all the way down to their toes. And that light of heaven coming through you is now filling up their feet. That light of heaven, of the higher self. We're not drawing from your stores, we're drawing straight from heaven. It's filling you up, filling up your heart, and now it's filling up their calves. And the light is slowly growing inside of them. It's filling up their thighs, beautifully, overflowing from you. That light from heaven, overflowing your heart, is shining out, filling up their abdomen, filling up their heart, their chest. That light of heaven, overflowing your heart, is filling up their throat, filling up their head. And suddenly the top of their head opens, and they begin to establish this connection to heaven. There's so much light. It's filling them up completely. You're already full. Filling you up, filling them up completely. The top of their head opens up, and all of a sudden, they establish connection to heaven. And now the two of you are full. That connection is striking up, jumping up into heaven, establishing their own connection to heaven. The light of the higher self of heaven is filling them up through their head, back down into their head, back down into their throat, into their heart, into their abdomen, into their arms, into their legs. Everything is full of light. And now the two of you are looking at each other full of light. The light of heaven, the light of understanding, the light of forgiveness and care. Now we are ready to begin to talk. And so you might look over at them and say the things that you need to say. Whatever it is that you need to say, I didn't like that, but I forgive you. I didn't like what happened. I forgive you. I'm so full of light, I don't have any choice. I forgive you. I didn't like it, but I forgive you. And now, once you have finished saying all the things that you need to say to them, and give your forgiveness, now allow them to say all of the things they need to say to you. Maybe they want to explain. Maybe they want to give an excuse, an understanding. This is why this happened. And maybe at the end, they're in such a good place that you will be able to hear, I'm sorry. Whatever it is that they need to say, we're not dependent on them. I gave my forgiveness already. I'm giving them a chance to say whatever they need to say. And this is all happening inside of me. And yet we know that consciousness is connected to every other piece of consciousness. And I have felt this connection with this person, and maybe I've been carrying it around negatively for some time, and I knew I was connected to this person negatively. And now I'm changing that connection because I am full of light, they are full of light, and now we both get to get everything off of our chest and explain and forgive and hopefully let go. But whatever happens with that other person, it's more about me. It's more about my learning, my understanding, and my forgiveness. The prayer, first of all, is about me. And second of all, I've done my all to help them and fill them with light and help them to establish their own connection with heaven. And now the understanding flows easily and effortlessly. The forgiveness begins to flow easily and effortlessly. Maybe I need to explain myself. Maybe they need to explain themselves. And I'm giving a chance for that. And maybe all I get is a feeling of understanding and a feeling of forgiveness. If I just go through this and that's all I feel, that's perfect. I did good. I did well. I followed through with the prayer. I felt something in the form of understanding, or I'm sorry, or I forgive you. That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Either way, I went through the process of explaining my side and letting it go and having forgiveness, having understanding, having compassion. And I invited them to do the same, and maybe that helped my own reasoning to invite understanding for myself, my own reasoning, why they might have done what they did. And maybe I get an answer, maybe I don't, but I started that process of inviting understanding into myself. And now, because we have both reached this place of understanding and compassion and forgiveness, and each of us is directly connected to heaven, we are both full of light. Now it's time to cut the cord, because this cord between us, the Kahuna call it the Aka cord. We could call it the Chi cord. We could call it the Prana cord. But there's a cord of understanding between us, and it used to be negative. And now we have filled it up with light. But it isn't necessary that we stay connected in this old way with this person. We have filled the connection with light, and we're going to cut this old connection so that if we decide we are going to reestablish a connection, we can do so more consciously in a much more positive way and let go of this old connection. Because the mind is constantly reaching out to everyone that we know with these old connections. And now and then it's very, very good to cut the cord and reestablish a new, more healthy, more full of light connection. So let's do that. Between this person, you have said what you had needed to say. I have said what I needed to say. There is forgiveness, there is understanding, and now I cut the cord. However you imagine that. I cut the cord between us. And now you are free into the light and I am free into the light. You just imagine that or feel that inside of yourself. And that is the Ho'oponopono prayer. Absolutely beautiful, so simple. You think, oh my goodness, it's so simple, and yet, like the peace and harmony prayer, it's somehow magical. And if you do this with one person or multiple people over and over again, you will find it absolutely transforms your relationship with them, and you can't figure out why. In the conscious world, in the outward world, you can't pinpoint why this is happening, because you're working internally, you're working psychically, you're working with the deep subconscious processes that set up your world before you even enter the room. You're changing all of that, and so you are fundamentally different. Your body language is different, your face is different, the way that you speak to them is different, and so you enter the room completely changed. You have done all this work. You don't need to do this work that you did out here, because you did it in here. You did it internally. You made a shift. And when you come in the room, that shift is already established, and so it will absolutely transform your relationship with that person the next time you see them. And maybe it's only this much, but that little bit can be huge when you're talking with somebody on a sticky point, right? I have a wonderful yogini, one of my students. She's absolutely deep, wonderful, profound yogini. And she was very, very worried about her daughter. She wanted to give her daughter a lot of advice. And we went inside and we did the Ho'oponopono prayer. And at the end, she said to me, I was so focused on making sure she hears me, and now I see, I feel, I know all she needs and all she wants is to know that I love her. I'm her mother and I love her. And she went back into that relationship, and all she did was concentrate on being a loving mom. And everything that she was worried about completely evaporated. All the advice that she wanted to give her, it completely evaporated as being necessary. The relationship, the real thing that she was worried about, which was making sure that connection was there with her daughter, it came through. It manifested. So she had all this logical left brain stuff in the way, and she did this internal work, and she got in touch with what was really, really important to her and really, really important to her daughter. And then she had a conversation out in the world again, and it was completely transformed because she had completely transformed. That's one little story, but there are so many times you will see that something changes in you and something changes in the other person the next time you come and talk to them again. It's magical. It's really magical. Now, sometimes, Tad said, you might be doing the Ho'oponopono process because there is somebody in your life and you want to cut the cord completely. Now, usually we cut the cord to reestablish a healthier connection, but sometimes it's appropriate. Somebody is not appropriate in our lives. It's appropriate to let go. So, for example, maybe there was somebody at work and we had a negative relationship with that person, and we even moved departments, but still they're taking up space, they're taking up residence in our brain. Well, that's no good. We don't need that. You can use the Ho'oponopono prayer and say goodbye. You fill yourself with light, you fill them with light, you allow them to speak, you give forgiveness, and then you cut the cord. And here's the thing, every single time you think about that person, you need to do that whole process again. So I did it relatively fast. When you first begin the Ho'oponopono prayer, it's good to do it even slower than I did it. If you wanted to follow along with my voice and I was too fast, go down below, hit the little gear switch and put it on extra slow. And you'll get the Ho'oponopono prayer even slower than normal speed. But once you're familiar with the prayer, you can go through it very, very quickly. So if there's somebody, that old person you used to work with, it wasn't a healthy relationship and now it's time to move on. All right, go through the Ho'oponopono prayer every single time you think about them. And you will be able to disengage your energy, disengage the Aka cord between you and that person, and you allow them to flourish in their own light and you to flourish in your light. And it's magical. It's just really magical, the results that you will notice in the outward world because you did this internal work. It's very powerful. And it's the beginning. It's the beginning of that psychic development, living in this secondary world. It's really profound. So I hope you love this. If you did, be sure to hit that bell down below so I can see all of you next time.